Hey, it's Mega here, and this video is a long-term review on the Electronic Race Technologies ASI BAC controller, alright? So I'm going to kind of go over my history with it, right? I think I've had it for about like 3 years now, and it's time to change it out because it's just going haywire now, okay? But so this is a 2018 Suron Lightbeat MX, okay? It's an MX, not an X, okay? So that's got to tell you how old this thing is. This is the very first model Suron that come out, alright? And it's still kicking, alright? It's definitely not what it used to be when I first bought it, I'll tell you that. I've probably dumped double the money that for like how much I bought this. I probably put another 4,000 into it, type of thing, alright? Okay? But it's a whole lot of fun is all I'm going to say, alright? So the video is about the Electric Race Technologies controller. I'm going to be changing it out for a Electric & Co. EMX RON controller, alright? It's a Votal EM150 is what it is, okay? So right now, currently I have on the bike is the Electric Race Technologies ASI BAC4000 controller setup, okay? It was one of the very first, yeah, I think it's like the first aftermarket controller to ever come out for the Suron, alright? So I had it like before like pretty much everyone else, okay? And I have to say it's been quite a ride with it. Okay, that's what I'm gonna say. Alright, so like it was new and like it's super hard to work with, alright, at first, alright? Alan, who the guy that made it, that was the owner of Electric Race Technologies, he sold this controller. First I actually had the BAC2000, alright? And then this one is the BAC4000, and then there's another one level up is the BAC8000, alright? So I'm not gonna lie, I probably should have got the BAC8000, alright? So I'll just tell you flat out now, you know, this is part of the review. If you're going to I wouldn't even bother with the BAC2000, alright? The BAC2000 is just only slightly better than stock, okay? If you want it for like the regen throttle, then yeah, that's nice, you know. I think the BAC4000 is probably the best controller for the Suron, alright? If you're like a casual rider, alright? If you don't race your bike, alright? You don't ride it very, very hard, then the BAC4000 is perfect. It'll do everything you want it to do, you know. Short of you won't nuke your motor, okay? So this is still the stock motor on my bike, and I've pushed it really, really hard, probably harder than pretty much everyone else is what I say, okay? And it's still running, alright? I'm trying to replace it, but I bought a QS motor, but I can't find a controller that can run with it, unfortunately, okay? Yeah, anyway, yeah. So my recommendation, alright, there's a bunch of other kits that have the BAC controller now, alright? There's a bunch of other companies that sell kits for this bike now. But Electric Race Technologies was the very first one, okay? The very first one. So if Suron came with the BAC4000 in the first place, I would be pretty happy with it. It's a pretty awesome controller. Alright, it definitely, I went from a BAC2000 to a 4000, alright? And definitely the difference in like the phase amps, alright? The phase amps is like what is like the torque, guys, alright? The more phase amps that you can push through out of the controller, that instant torque, you know, when you get on it and it goes, you get more of that, okay? So when you go from the 2000 to 4000, you're pretty much doubling that, alright? So you get like double the torque. It is noticeably different, alright? It kind of blew my mind away when I went from the 2000 to 4000. 2000, you just kind of, the power band was just like a two-stroke, all right? You have to kind of wait for it to wind up, and then it would hit hard, you know. This one, it's more like a four-stroke. You get on it, you twist the throttle, and it'll go right away, okay? And then I've only ridden a bike with I actually got to ride a bike with the ERT BAC8000 kit, all right, before, but it wasn't tuned for like big power, all right? They turned the power settings down like way low, okay? And yeah, so it was kind of slow. So okay, but yeah, so it was kind of slow, that BAC8000. I didn't really get to see what it could really do, and I rode it in the dirt. So Honestly, in the dirt, you're probably only going to want like 10 kilowatts of power, man. You probably don't want to run more than 10 kilowatts of power in the dirt because it's just a handful. It's too hard to ride with that much power. Okay, the only thing you really need a lot of power for in the dirt is to like either go up hills or ride through like really loose terrain like sand or something. Okay, where you need like a lot of power. Okay, other than that, you don't really need that much power off-road, guys. Yeah, I got a race this weekend. I'm not going to need all that much power because it's a dirt bike race, all right? However, for supermoto, that's when you need the big power, all right? So this controller, I've been able to push 13 kilowatts through it, right? Just shy of 13 kilowatts, like 12.9 kilowatts, and the NXT display tells me, okay? So, and that's a lot of power, 13 kilowatts, all right? Yeah, so Hades Omega believes that BAC4000 is perfect for like everybody, you know, for most riders. All right, you don't even bother with the 2000, and then the 8000 is if you're going to be racing, all right. The 8000 is good. Like I said, with the 8000, I heard that you can damage the motor. Okay, you might destroy this motor. But if you get the 8000 and you tune it down to where like the 4000 power levels are, all right, keep it around 13 kilowatts, 14 kilowatts, then the bike will be fine, okay? And you could be like ripping on it, and like you won't blow up your motor or anything, okay? But the reason I recommend the 8000 for racing is it's not because it's got more power, it's because it has more capacity to handle heat, all right? I can get this controller to overheat. I mean, when the bike was running good, all right, when this bike was running good with this controller, it was awesome, all right. It could pull like 13 kilowatts, like no problem, and it wouldn't even get that hot. The motor would get pretty hot, but the controller doesn't really get all that hot, okay. And then last year, this controller started acting up. It started the NXT display, all right, the tuning computer. Well, I'll kind of go over everything on the bike later, right? It started boot looping and stuff, and it goes into what I call berserk mode, where it just like dumps a bunch of power and regen when you twist the throttle. Yeah, kind of scary. And the controller would get overheat and like it would cut off and stuff. I would get phase current over voltage and stuff. So like maybe it could be the throttle. I'm not sure. Maybe the throttle's messed up. I don't know. I noticed when I went. So this is a MX. This had the throttle box on it. All right. The older Surrounds had a little box, a throttle box on the bottom here, and then there was a regular cable throttle that goes to that box. All right. So when I had that, I was getting less of those those overcurrent faults. I was getting less of those because the throttle opens slower. All right. This Surround throttle, it opens super fast, like wham. All right. So the controller doesn't like that when you try to make it go faster. Okay. Like when you try to make it go fast, like right away, it'll give you a current error. Okay. It doesn't like that type of thing. Okay. Yeah. So that's the problems I'm having with it right now. It's going into this berserk mode. All right. And then in the last race, it cut out like 6 times while I was during a race. All right. And I can't have that. Like if you. Like it'll really only takes like a second or two to turn the bike off and turn it on to restart it and get going again, but it's super dangerous. All right, just imagine you're going like 50 miles an hour down the straight, all right, and then the bike cuts out, and then the corner is coming up really fast, and you lose regen. All right, you lose regen, you lose your braking ability. You need to be able to use the mechanical. You have to remember, I got to go to mechanical brakes now. All right, and you just have to like think real fast. Like, well, should I turn the bike off, turn it back on, or should I try to do the mechanical brakes? So, and if you don't do that, and if you don't do it fast enough, you go off the track. All right, and that could be deadly. Okay, so I decided that's it. We're not going to be racing with this controller anymore. I use this bike more for racing now than just for just riding, casual riding and stuff. So yeah, so that's what's wrong with this controller now. Let me talk about in the beginning. All right, so in the beginning, Hades Omega had all sorts of problems with ERT. and it's the same problems that everybody else was having. They took a long time to get your stuff, all right, and you have to be real patient. It would take like 3 months to get your stuff, right? And it took me about like 3 months to get my BAC4000 kit, all right. And then when I got it, like the 3D printing for the brackets they would crack and stuff. The 3D printing for the brackets was not very good, all right, guys, and I was not a big fan of that, all right. So I made aluminum brackets, okay. and the thing is, yeah, and then the bike wouldn't run properly. I would have to get Alan to look at it, and he would have to do stuff to it, and and then to get the regen working, I had to do so much stuff. I'm not gonna tell you like the amount of hours Hades Omega spent like trying to get in the controller and input numbers and stuff and settings, take it out down my block, write it up and down the block, see how it is, and then come back and then try to do that again. I've done that. I've done it for many hours, man. There's so many, so much of my life has been wasted into like getting this thing running properly. All right, so that's why Hades Omega would just like to buy something, put it on there, and it runs already. All right, I don't want any, you know, have to troubleshoot anything. All right, I just want it to run properly. All right, that's when you twist that throttle, the bike will go. All right, that's all I want. Right. And it couldn't even do that at first, okay? And then so yeah, Hades Omega got it running good eventually, and then Hades Omega upgraded to the yeah. So I had the BSC2000, and it still wasn't it wasn't powerful enough for Supermoto, and it would overheat a lot. All right, that BSC2000, it would overheat a lot. All right, and one of my complaints about the BSC controller is the heatsink sucks, man. It's just this flat plate of aluminum, all right? It's not, doesn't dissipate heat good enough, all right? That's why I have an aftermarket heatsink on it, all right, guys? I like overclocked my freaking thing. Oh, well, anyway, yeah, about the heatsink, Hades Omega actually built a heatsink for a BAC2000, all right? I had some heatsinks lying around, and I drilled some holes in the controller's heatsink, and I slapped the heatsink onto it, okay? One big enough to fit on the controller. The BSC2000 is this tiny little thing, alright guys, and then it would actually run better with that heatsink. So yeah, this thing overheats like a whole lot, alright. It's not all that is what I'm gonna say. So and then eventually Alan he offered to for me to upgrade to a BSC4000. So what happened was I gave Alan like $200, and he let me upgrade to a BSC4000, and I gave him the 2000 back. All right, that was a pretty good deal, and I got it pretty quick this time. All right, I didn't have to wait like 3 months to get it or something. Okay, and then right around that time, Hades Omega got the NXT display. All right, so Alan, I think I got a new. Did I get a new harness with it? Yes, I believe I got a new. Yeah, I think. Man, I don't quite remember, honestly. I don't remember if I got the BSC4000 first and then the NXT display. It's kind of foggy up here. Hades Omega's getting old, man. But it was a new it was an NXT display, all right, and it was a new harness, okay, and you would put it in there, and then it would work, all right. And so I'm not gonna lie, the NXT display was hella buggy at first, all right. There's just Alan had made the NXT display, all right. So what it is like it's a little computer, all right, that you can change settings and stuff, all right. What it does is when you hit save, it goes into the controller, all right, and inputs the password to unlock the controller, because the controller has these write protect settings in it, all right. So if you don't have the proper code to like, even if you had the backdoor software, you couldn't change stuff in it unless you had a write protect code, all right. You knew the password to change the settings in there, okay. And yeah, so what the NXT display does is it automatically does that, all right. You change the setting, you hit save. What it does is it inputs, it logs into the controller, all right. It talks to the controller. It tells it, okay, enable disable write protect. All right, it'll disable the write, because I've seen it. I watched it actually do it. It'll disable the write protect. It'll change that setting that you're trying to change, and then it'll protect it again. All right, and then the bike will run with a different setting. So pretty awesome. So what it is just basically a mobile tuning computer. All right, and it doubles as like a gauge cluster. All right, it tells you your speed, your voltage. You could change the different modes. You can, it had a little tachometer on it. All right, tell you how much RPM. You could change the settings on that too. You can change what the display looks like. It's a really nice setup. I actually really like this NXT display. The only thing I don't like about it is the display is kind of fragile. All right, one, it's kind of fragile. Two, the display sucks. Okay, in the sun, I can't see it at all. All right, so it's pretty much useless in the sun. All right, so the display sucks. It's not bright enough in the sun. All right, even with the newest firmware that makes the screen brighter, it's still thing. And I've also broken it. All right, so I broke it in a race. Somebody crashed into my bike, and the display. Well, no, they didn't break it, but it fell off of the bike, and then I had to like put it somewhere. I had to like shoehorn it somewhere into the bike to keep it there, and then eventually it broke. All right, the screen cracked. So I had to actually put another screen in there, and I had to reprogram everything and flash it and everything. So, yeah, it's really like a DIY type of thing. That's what I say. All right. And the case was all 3D printed and everything. It's not very nice. There were actually some screws in the NXT display. There's some screws that screw down the screen to the NXT display case. They weren't even there for one thing, all right? So Alan never put them in there. So I had to find some screws to put it in there. If you put the screws in there too tight, it like presses on the screen all the time, and then the NXT display doesn't do anything because it's a touchscreen interface, all right? So it's like kind of like if you're talking on a radio, if you key the mic, nobody else can transmit or anything, right? It's kind of like that. It's like the screen is being touched all the time if you tighten the screws too tight. So I had to remember, don't tighten them too tight so you can still use the screen and stuff, all right? It's not very waterproof, all right? So yeah, Hitsumega is not really a big fan of the NXT display like as a display, okay? But what Alan did with it is awesome, man. Like after there's so many, man, there must have been like 10 different firmware updates, all right? We had to take it off and then load the SD card and do all this crazy stuff. And then eventually, Alan got it running where, it would be reliable, all right? You can change all the settings and stuff. Sometimes you would put a setting in and it wouldn't change it, or like you have to restore it or something. Eventually, Alan got it running like pretty good, almost perfectly, all right? And you could actually tune it so you can get more power than it was designed for, all right? Maybe that's why Hitsumega broke the BAC4000, okay? But yeah, and then I changed the mount to like a GoPro mount, and then I can take it off and on easily. So with the NXT display, it's pretty awesome. Also, so another thing Hitsumega really likes about this ERT setup, or the BAC controller in general, is it allows you to use a region throttle, a second throttle, so you can control your region directly, like however much you want. And so it's kind of like it's analog, right? Hitsumega has a second throttle here. Okay, it's a thumb throttle, and then when you press it a little bit, it gives you a little bit of region. When you press it a lot, it gives you a lot of region, like enough to lock it up. And you can control how much power that region has. But with the NXT display, like if you think it's not enough, you can increase it. But you can get like the full region and everything. You can have so much region that you'll just lock the rear wheel up right away, all right? You kind of don't want this. Kind of scary sometimes. So yeah, but you can fine tune it, all right? And I love it. It's a great throttle to have, a region throttle. I don't know why other motorcycles don't have this thing, man. It's so awesome. You can control the engine braking however much you want, whenever you want, all right? And if you don't want it, you don't use it. It'll just kind of freewheel along, one thing it's good for is going down hills, all right? So if you're like a dirt biking and you're going down a really steep hill, the region helps the bike slow down, and also on the racetrack, all right? you go, yeah, you're trying to slow the bike down right away, you just get on the regen, like you'll have way more braking power than if you were just using the regular brakes, right? Hayes, Meg, or Harley, you rarely use the brakes on the bike, right? When I'm going really fast and I need to slow down fast, I use the regen and the front throttle, the front brake, all right, the one on the right, and it slows down really, really fast, all right? And the faster you can slow your bike down, the faster you can get it back up to speed, you know, on the racetrack. So I'm gonna miss that, guys. I'm gonna have to rely on off throttle regen, all right? That's a regen where you roll off and then it starts regen for you, okay? Yeah, so that's a scoop there. I really like that regen throttle, all right? And I'm gonna be sad to see it go, all right? I've had it fail on me once, all right, during a race. It's kind of Hayes Omega's fault. It got stuck on the throttle here, or on the hand grip, right? The pedal gets stuck on there because I removed the rear brake from the bike because the rear brake stopped working, and I just think I'm just gonna chuck it. And I didn't realize that the throttle, I mean the clutch side, the left side, there's no clutch, but the left side grip, it would move and it touched the freaking throttle, and it would get stuck, all right? So and then it just broke during a race, and I didn't have a spare one. So after that race, I bought like extra regen throttles, and I made sure to bring one with me just in case that happened again. All right, but other than that, it's been pretty reliable. The first one I bought is actually the best one I bought. I never have any problems. This new one I bought, it's kind of, you know, it's not very smooth. I don't know why. Like I've been using it, and it's still not smooth. I put some lube in there, and it's still not very smooth. All right, the first one that I got was really good. Okay, yeah. So I want to see, sad to see that regen throttle go. That was my favorite. Also, for you riding it off road, you can skid the bike around the corners. Like you can lock the rear and slide the bike around the corner, kind of like just using a rear brake, you know. But you're using the regen, and it works so good. Also, it helps put the power back into the battery. It gives you better range. All right, much better range. Because I remember I raced with it, and when it broke, I had to race without it, and I had less charge after the race, all right, type of thing. So it really works, guys. Okay, so just riding on the street, just casual riding, it's great. Like I only use the regen throttle to slow down. That's it, you know. I don't use anything else. I don't use if I need to just kind of stop the bike when you're getting close to 0 miles per hour, then I'll use the front brake a little bit. Or if I need to slow down really quick, then yeah, maybe I might use the front brake. But other than that, I only use the regen throttle. It saves me from having to buy brake pads all the time. You know, brake pads are expensive for freaking Sauron, all right? They're just itty bitty little things, you know. They cost as much as motorcycle brake pads, but they're just teeny tiny things. They don't last very long, you know. So like, yeah, Hayes Mega doesn't spend a lot of money on brake pads because he's got this regen throttle, right? So one of the drawbacks of the regen throttle, however, or just using a lot of regen in general, is it will overheat your battery. Okay, so okay, yeah, so you're charging and you're discharging the battery, and that heats the battery up a whole lot, all right? And if you get the battery hot enough, that BMS will get angry at you and it will cut you off, all right? Before when this was running really good, it would actually slow the bike down. It would throttle the performance back, all right? So it wouldn't get too hot, all right? But after it broke like a year ago, it does the opposite, all right? It actually eats up more power, and then it overheats even faster. So I don't know what happened. I think the reason for that is I raced it in a wet race, and it got all wet and stuff, and it broke the controller, all right? Which is another reason I do not like this controller, all right? This controller does not like water at all, all right? So when I had I had the X controller on this bike before, right? The previous owner installed it because this is an MX, right? And the X controller was super reliable. Like, you know, it worked no problem all the time, type of thing. I could still overheat the battery. I could still overheat the stock Sauron battery. That's the funny thing, like on the Supermoto track. But anyway, with the X controller, like I can wash the bike. You know, I can get it wet. I can go through water crossings and stuff, and the bike will run fine. All right, it doesn't. You know, it's fine. All right. I heard that you don't want to get your motor wet. All right, because the water could get inside the motor, and then everything would start rusting and stuff in there. But yeah, I've done water crossing and stuff and ridden in the rain, or like, it's really wet out, no problem. But until I got this BAC controller, right? Ever since I've had the BAC controller, BAC 2000, 4000, if I would just wash my bike, right? I get it wet, and the controller gets wet or something. The bike just goes haywire, right? The what happens is the bike just starts riding by itself, right? The wheels start spinning by itself, and to keep it from spinning, you can use the regen throttle, all right? Boy, I'm going to tell you, I have this story here. All right, I raced the Virginia City Grand Prix, the 50th Virginia City Grand Prix. I raced the 50th Virginia City Grand Prix, and it was a wet race, all right? The red loop was a wet race. It was pouring, and it was so wet and muddy out there. It was freaking nasty, all right? I wish I hadn't raced that race. Maybe my bike would still probably be running good. That's what I say, all right? But anyway, yeah, the controller got wet, and the bike just started running on its own, and it was so hard to ride the bike like that, because I'd have to get on the regen throttle all the time. If I'm using the regen throttle a lot, it hurts my wrist a lot, yeah, I don't know. And then I could never really get the off throttle regen to work on this bike. So yeah, this hopefully the next controller that I get will be more, less finicky than this one, all right, I'm gonna say. But yeah, this controller did not like water at all, all right. If you let it dry off, all right, when it dried off, then it would run properly again, all right. But if you got it wet again, let's say you have to go through a water crossing and the bike got wet, it would start riding on its own, all right, and you'd have to use the regen throttle to slow it down all the time. That's kind of annoying, all right. I'm not gonna lie, all right. So yeah, that's one of the things I do not like about this controller is it does not like water at all. Okay, so also the heat sink, all right? Like I said, I mentioned about the heat earlier, the BSC 2000, I made a heat sink for it. Well, for the BSC 4000, I bought the Matt Boto's Synergy heat sink, all right? It's this huge CNC plate of aluminum, very beautifully made, and it functions as a mount and the heat sink for the BSC 4000, all right? The BSC 4000 needs a heat sink, guys. It's just, if you're gonna ride it really hard, then yeah, you're gonna need a heat sink. It makes a big difference, all right. ASI Mega used to race, or ASI Mega used to have an electric RC car, and I would have heat sinks all over. I would have a heat sink on the motor. I would have a heat sinks on the speed controller and all that stuff. Yeah, man. It would be heat sink city, all right? Because the name of the game is you got to try to get rid of the heat, all right? Heat means you're losing power, right? Okay. So yeah, this heat sink is much better. The 3D printing was better. I think what I had to do was shorten the mount a little bit so it would suck the controller up in there a little bit more. But other than that, I like it. This is actually for a BSC 8000 also, all right? And we'll take a closer look at everything. But yeah, for the 3 years I had it, it was great. All right, the last year I've had it, it is just acting up, and I just kind of had to just suck it up, just live with it, type of thing. I didn't want to buy another controller. Okay. If I had to do it again though, ASI Mega would love to run a BAC 8000 or ERT BAC 8000. All right, I like this NXT display. I like the regen throttle. When it runs great, it's good. All right, I think I would rather, for me, I would rather have the BAC 8000. That's what I should have did. Instead of getting the 4000, I should have just jumped to the 8000. But ASI Mega, money, right? Money's always the problem. All right, I wish I had more money. All right, there's a lot of other options, a lot of kits out there. I think like Motoclop sells one, E-Moto Bros, eBMX sells one, and then now they got the KO motor. All right, that's a controller and motor thing. Torp, there's a Torp controller that they're making for this. There's a nuclear one, like it's a Russian one. Yeah, there's all sorts of, and then so the one I'm going to replace it with, Electro & Co. EMX RON controller, right, or a Votal E150 or something. Okay, well I can show you it real quick. All right, because I'm going to make an install video for it. after this. Okay, but yeah, I really like this setup. I just wish it would work properly again. All right, and I wish I had gotten the BAC8000 so it could handle the heat better. I think maybe if I got the BAC8000, you know, maybe the bike would still be running okay now, right? And oh, drag racing. So I did use this bike for drag racing, and with this BAC4000 setup, all right, and the setup I have on the bike, pretty similar to the setup that I have on the bike. This bike would run 16s, all right, guys. This bike was freaking fast before, all right. It would pull up to 13 kilowatt. That's really fast. I did a top speed test on the freeway, and I hit 80 miles an hour pretty much, all right. It was like 79 miles an hour. This thing was crazy fast before, right? And now it's so slow. Like when I twist the throttle, there's not a whole lot of power. I had to turn the phase amps down so it doesn't cut out. You know, having all these sorts of problems with it that I think it's time to go, right? I think if I was going to use it for just casual riding, you know, I didn't really care if it cut out or anything, you know, because I wasn't going to do anything critical. Then I would probably still run it, all right? Maybe if I had another Suron lying around, I would, you know, plop it on there, you know. But if I need it for racing and stuff, it's not going to cut the mustard anymore, all right? Definitely. And the thing is, like, the bike is faster now, but it's not as fast as those other bitty bikes. I'll tell you that now, right? So I have a KLX 140 with a 170 bore-up kit, and this with this controller, this bike is pretty much the same speed. All right, I'm getting the same lap times as my KLX, my gas bike. Okay, so that tells you with this setup, you're in the 170cc territory of power. Okay. Which is pretty good, but it's not good enough to beat a Honda CRF 150R. Dude, those things are freaking monsters, right? They're so fast. I'm getting beat by 65cc two-strokes with really good riders on them. All right. Stock, I think a TTR 125. All right. The stock bike is about as fast as a TTR 125. So you went from like a 125 to like a 170cc. All right. So just think about that. All right. So this bike is equivalent to like a 170cc 4-stroke bike, right? A hopped up one. But man, it has like so much torque and drive out of the corner. Those phase amps are incredible. Like if you need to go, you know, it'll go. Okay. When this thing worked good, it was so good. All right, but it's just giving me so many problems lately. It's time to let it go. So that's why I'm making this video. Okay, so let's go take a closer look at the bike before I start taking the controller off and putting my new one in, okay? Okay, there it is. Electric Race Technologies ASI BAC4000 powered Suron, all right? So this is the latest configuration I have it in, all right? And I'm going to go over it real quick. I'll give you the grand tour, all right? So here's the controller itself. I just installed this DRZ fender not too long ago. I don't know if it's blocking the heat sink all that much, but this is the Matt Bodos Synergy heat sink. All right, this functions as a mount and a heat sink. All right, very nice, very thick. It looks like almost a ½ inch thick plate of aluminum. All right, and it's got heat sinks CNC'd into it to make it lighter. And it's got the Matt Bodos logo right there. Okay. This is how it's mounted. There's 2 bolts here that connect to the sensor here, all right, the tilt sensor, which doesn't work anymore, and then there's two brackets here. All right, I don't know if this is, I don't remember. I think I made this. I'm not sure. All right. Yeah. Anyway, the bracket goes to the side bracket here, right, for the original controller. All right, that's how it goes. I remember I shortened this so this would be tucked up in there more, so the fender wouldn't touch it, and the fender doesn't touch it. All right, it's perfect. Now the new one, I'm not too sure. We'll find out when I install it. Yeah, okay, so that's the mount. There's the BSC controller. All right, mounted right there. Okay, and then there's a harness that connects to the Suron harness, like up in here. All right, and then so the battery that I'm running on it is a Lightspeed Bikes 72 volt 30 amp hour battery. That's what's in it right now. I also have a 32 amp hour battery. All right, this is the one with the moly cell. All right, this is a little bit bigger. a little bit more capacity than this one. All right, honestly, they're kind of the same, dude. This one has Sony cells. All right, both of them are great. I just wish I had two of these batteries, because this one fits better, all right? Because this one's a little bigger, and then this one is kind of too small for this now. So that's why I have to put this pillowcase. To see what this is here? This is like a padding. It's a pillowcase. I put it underneath the cover, all right? It's got a drop battery meter connected to the wiring in here, all right? So it tells me how much charge the battery has, right? If I turn it on. All right, so right now it says it's really hard to read, but 92% and 82.2 volts. Okay, I've also got a fast charging USB port, right, and it tells me how much charge that it has. Not how much charge, but it's how much voltage is coming out of the DC converter, right? So there's 12.3 volts coming out of it right now. Okay, and so there's the NXT display. You guys want to see the cool boot up sequence that Alan has programmed into this thing. Here's the boot up sequence. I'm going to flip the key. Here goes. It says ERT, NXT. You get a tachometer sweep, and there it goes. Okay, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this. In this screen, the bike operates. All right, so I twist the throttle, all right, and it'll run. And then I got the regen throttle right here. Okay, that stops it. All right, but if you go into the settings menu here, you press the wrench icon here, right? It won't run anymore. Right, it's kind of in like a standby mode or something. Okay, and that's when you can go change all your settings. All right, I'll kind of go over everything so you guys can see this cool stuff that Alan had programmed in here. Okay, there's a battery select. All right, so you can actually change your battery pack. So this will actually auto detect what kind of battery pack you have in here. So one of the things that sold me about the NXT display when Alan told me about it is the ability to swap in the stock battery pack. Okay, so you can go between the 60 volt pack and a 72 volt pack. All right, by going to this battery selecting. All right, so if I hit this, you can select what battery pack that you want. All right, so you can the X160 has a 52 volt pack. You can even use that if you want. All right, the 60 volt stock, 60 volt BMS bypass, and then a 72 volt pack. All right, we're running the 72 volt pack. Okay, I'm not going to save that. Yeah, and you can even go to this is battery information. Some of the stuff on this doesn't work, guys. All right, you can check your bike stats out. This is pretty cool. When this worked, it was really cool. All right, you can tell all your stats and stuff while you're riding. See, BAC4000 plus. The firmware is RC 6.50.5. The motor is a Suron motor. You know what? I never even bothered checking to see what motor was in there. I had the QS motor. I did actually have a QS 165 motor installed on this for a little while, and it worked, just not very well. Okay, the nominal voltage is 72 volts. Here's some battery stuff. All right, it tells you your voltage minimums, your voltage sag, your max voltage, your minimum watts. Minimum watts is regen. All right, so if you see like negative 127 watts, that means you put minus 127 watts into the battery. All right, and then the max watts that you're pulling. So we pulled like 2.7 watts, 2.7 kilowatts right there. Okay, and then the max current that you're outputting. Okay. And then you can choose, I don't know what this session and life night, I don't think that really works. And then this is the motor stats. It tells you your max RPM, how much current your motor is pulling out. We just pulled 130 amps right there. And then how many the temps is in Celsius. Okay, and then these are some rider statistics. It tells you how many miles per hour you're going, your odometer and a trip meter. Alan finally got that thing working. All right, it can actually tell you your trip meter. I never really use it, honestly, though. I really like the trip meter that was on the Suron already. It worked. It was simple and it worked good. All right, and I lost it when I installed this. All right, that's another thing I like about this is the ability to recalibrate the wheel size. All right. So I have this calibrated so it works perfectly. Right now I'm running a 17-inch wheel setup. Right, I'm running 17. This is my track wheel setup, by the way, guys. It's freaking awesome. All right, these slicks are so good. But anyway, this is a 17-inch rims, and I'm running a 48-tooth sprocket. All right, so I'm using the same sprocket that's on the dirt wheel, but on a 17-inch rim. So it gives me a little bit more. It gives me a torque boost, all right? But the problem is it spins the motor faster than before, right? So your speedometer will be off, all right? So that's what happens when if you change sprockets on a stock Zoran, the speedometer will be off, right? I had a 62 sprocket on mine, and it told me I'm going too fast all the time. So your speedometer becomes useless, but not with this puppy, all right? So here you've got wheel, all right? So you can calibrate it, all right? So you can ride it. If you're going too fast, you can adjust this, and then you can get it. So what I do is I ride around with a GPS, all right? I have a GPS mounted right here on the ram ball mount, and then I will compare the two speeds, and then if the GPS speed is like higher, then we'll have to make this one faster, okay? You get it? All right, and you can change it in the kilometers. You can reset the odometer here, okay? So I kind of skipped a little bit. All right, power tuning. All right, this allows you to adjust how much power output the throttle will give you, okay? So let's say you want to limit the power to like 10,000 watts, all right? So when you twist this all the way, it won't give you any more than 10,000 watts, all right? Type of thing. It's like a throttle. It's like a throttle mapping is what it is, okay? You can also set a speed limiter. I could never get that thing to work properly, all right, guys? I would always have it on sport, and I would make sure sport and eco were the same thing, all right? So if I wanted to change how the throttle mapping, I would just go in here and change the numbers, right? Basically, you can hit this, and then you could type in how much you want. I want 10,000 watts. You would put 10,000 watts in, all right? The max power limit is 16,000 watts, all right? So, will BAC4000 hit 16,000 watts or 16 kilowatts? No, it will not, guys. I don't think I've ever gotten it to hit that much power, all right? Probably gotten 13 or 14 max, maybe. Okay, you can also set a speed limit. All right, you can put like 30 miles an hour and it won't go faster than 30 miles an hour. All right, but I always leave it off because it's finicky, guys. Okay, there's motor options. All right, so this is where you change your motor options. You can change your motor current or phase amps. All right, to 398. The BAC4000 is rated maximum 400 amps. All right. 400 phase amps, but you can push it harder than that, all right? You can go to 463 if you want, all right? Because with Allen's tuning, all right, type of thing. All right, will it run 463 amps? I'll tell you this, the way the bike is right now, it won't. It'll cut out right away, okay? It'll just say there's too much current. So I keep it. I used to run about 421 amps, all right? About that much, all right? And it would run great at that power, all right, and it would be reliable, but not anymore. So I run like 398 now, okay, but it's still, it feels like it's way slower than that. You can also adjust your field weakening here. You can go from 1%, you can turn it off, to 50%, all right. It's recommended to like not go over like 30% or something. I usually run it like 25 to 30 or something. Okay, and then also you can do a motor calibration here. All right, so when you put a new firmware in and stuff, you can recalibrate the motor. You'd have to recalibrate the motor and stuff, and this has like an auto tuning function. All right, so when you hit this button, the wheel will move, all right, and it'll start an auto tuning procedure. All right, I'm not going to show you guys, but the wheel will move, and then it'll auto tune it. Sometimes if it's running kind of funny, it's not running right, you can do that. You should do that, all right, guys. You can also change the direction of the motor. I found that out. The funny thing is that QS motor that I installed, when I install it, it runs backwards, all right, guys. Okay. Also, there's a restore function, and you can do stuff with the gauge. I try not to mess with this too much. Whenever you mess with the NXT display, like say you update the firmware, you have to do a restore, and then you have to like put all the settings back in. Okay, it's not that many settings, guys. It's pretty easy to remember. Like I've done this so many times. So also it says here, while in settings, throttle is disabled. Okay, so these are the other input settings here. This is where you can adjust your regen. All right.
So for the braking, you can do off throttle regen, or you can use a brake sensor cutoff sensor, or like a switch or something, or you can use a regen throttle, right? That's what I got it on right now, regen throttle. For some reason, I think my off throttle regen doesn't work anymore. I never really use it anyways. This thing is the tits, guys, I'm telling you. And then there's the regen. All right, you can set it for, I have it set for 50%. The more phase amps you guys get, or more motor current that you have programmed into there, the more braking you guys you're gonna get. All right, so let's say I have 400, I'm getting like a lot of braking. If you put like 150 phase amps in, then it's like you don't get a lot of regen. All right, and you don't get a lot of power or a lot of torque. All right, there's a minimum regen speed too. So like when you get to a certain speed, it stops the regen or something. So I always leave that at 0. I always use this to stop the bike. All right, it's awesome. All right, there is also a throttle calibration. All right, I can do it real quick. So here's the throttle calibration, and it'll actually map the throttle like for you. So I'm gonna you just twist the throttle like 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and it's mapped. All right, so and it tells you that the throttle idle is 0.87 volts. All right, the throttle full is, so when you twist it all the way, it outputs 2.57 volts. The max is 2.47. And the minimum is 0.91 volts. All right, so that's the mapping. So you gotta go back out here, save that. All right, every time you want to save a setting, you gotta hit the save. All right, or else if you go back out, it's not gonna change it. All right, and then you could do the regen throttle also. All right, I got the regen throttle right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Go out. So it's pretty much the same thing as this one, right? We got 2 throttles. And then I showed you the wheel one already, and there's a diagnostic. It tells you if there's any kind of faults. All right, but there's no faults right now. See, these are the different faults that you can get. This one I get a lot. Okay, instant phase overcurrent. All right, that means the current is like ramping up too fast and it's not happy. Okay. That's the one I get most of the time. Sometimes when the battery voltage is really low, I'll get another one like there's an over temp motor. I never get that one anymore. So yeah, my bike is kind of messed up, man. Or this whole thing is messed up, so I want to say. Okay, and yeah, that's the NXT display right there. All right, you can change torque mode, speed mode. You could put it in sport or eco, but like I said, I have it set to like only 1 power. Okay, and there's a night mode and like a day mode. Right, you can make it bright or you can make it dark. I like it in the night mode. Okay, and it tells you your RPM. You can also change this. Oh, 63 volts. That's not right. That is not right. It's not 63 because we have 82 volts in the battery right now. So there you go. There's something up with this. All right, guys. So that's why I'm getting rid of it. Here's a tachometer. Okay, so another weird thing that happened when Alan did one of the firmware updates is if I roll the bike backwards, it says we're going 153 miles an hour. Okay, I just moved the wheel backwards. Okay. Yeah, and this is your trip meter. There is also another view that you could choose. It's like kind of like a bar graph or something. This is the cool one. I like this. It's got this S2000 looking thing, right? Okay, yeah, and so that's pretty much the ERT BAC controller setup, man. It took a long time to get this bike tuned up the way it is, and I'm kind of sad to see it like this in this state right now. That's what I want to say. All right, I really like this setup. When it was running good, it was freaking awesome. All right, if I had to do it again, I would have got the BAC 8000, guys. I should have got the BAC 8000. If you're going to be racing or you're going to be riding your bike really hard like Hayes Omega does, BAC 8000 is the one you want because it can handle the heat better. All right, it is designed for double the power. All right, so you got 2000 to 4000 and then 4000 to 8000. All right, it's like exponential type of, right? It doubles, right? So you could figure that BAC 8000 could probably handle double the heat type of thing, right? My suggestion, if you guys got it, if you have a BAC 8000, tune it to how you would tune a BAC4000 and run it that way. That way your bike won't blow up, okay? Your bike won't blow up, and the controller will be reliable, and it won't get hot all the time, it won't overheat. All right, this thing gets hot a lot now. All right. Also, yeah, it used to tell you your motor temps and all that good stuff, and now, so the problem is when it's cold, it's behaving itself right now, right? It looks like it's running properly right now, but it's not. All right. If I take it for a rip around the block, and the motor heats up, all right, or if it's a really hot day out, this thing will just start boot looping, all right? It'll turn off and turn on, turn off, turn on, okay? You can actually, also, Alan made it so you can run this without the NXT display. You could disconnect the NXT display, it'll run without it, all right? And if you wanted to change, but the only thing is when I disconnect it, it runs like it's in berserk mode, all right? It gives you like all the power, all right? And for riding off-road, that's like too much power, guys. Like, I don't want the full power off-road, all right? I don't need it off-road, all right? That's my setup, all right? And I loved it when it worked properly. But unfortunately, it's not working properly anymore. If I can get a hold of a old ERT BAC8000 kit, if you got one that you want to sell me, you know, let's say you want to get a KO motor or something, and you want to sell me your old ERT BAC8000 kit, let me know, all right? If you got the one with the NXT display, you know, and I'll buy it from you, okay? That's one I say. I know, because I saw that I actually got to ride a bike with the ERT BAC8000 on it, all right? Some dude bought it from some guy in New York, and he was riding with it at Metcalf, and he let me ride it too, so it was pretty cool. That's the first time I'd ridden with the BAC8000, but it wasn't like tuned all the way. Okay, so yeah, price. How much did Hayes Mega pay for all this stuff? All right, I think it was $600 for the BAC2000 kit. All right, and I think for to upgrade to the 4000 was another $200. So you say that's $800. All right, and I think the NXT display was another like 100 or 200 bucks. So I'm already like at like $1,000. All right, with all this setup. All right. Just imagine with the BAC8000, I don't know how much Alan would have charged me to upgrade to that one, but man, it probably would have doubled the price. The BAC8000 ain't cheap, guys. That's the reason I didn't buy one. I couldn't afford it. All right. All right. But the big money goes into the battery, guys. All right. This battery is about like 2,000 bucks. All right. I think I got this for $1,800. All right, and I got two of them, man. It's freaking crazy, right? $1,800 for that battery. All right, but it runs pretty good with that battery. I've abused it pretty well, and it's still running. So, so yeah, just factor in that total damage. All right, 1,800 plus 1,000. So like I'm like 20. Jeez. Yeah, I'm almost like $4,000. Yeah, another $4,000 into the bike. Type of thing, all right? And that's not even counting the suspension upgrades that I've done. Yeah, this bike has a lot of money thrown into it, all right? And I've had this bike for a long time. I've had this Sauron longer than most people have had Saurons, all right? Hayes Mega's old school Sauron, all right? This is a MX, all right? They don't sell these anymore, all right? But this bike has so many upgrades, you know, it's crazy. Okay, yeah, so there it is. Here's some kind of statistics. I've got videos about it. All right, guys. I have videos to prove it. This bike can run 16s on the quarter mile. All right. I've gotten very good reaction. I'm good at launching this bike. All right. I've gotten very good reaction times with this. This bike has won a couple drag racing trophies, and like I've got a second place trophy, and I've got like 2 or 3 third place trophies. I was never able to get a first place trophy, guys. Drag racing is hard. Try it, guys. All right. So if you want to know how I launch this bad boy when I drag race, I hold the front brake down, all right, and I try to put my weight over the front of the handlebars, all right, so the front doesn't come up, all right, because that'll happen, all right. And then what I do is I open the throttle until I feel the wheel starting to move a little bit. Oh, Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, it's gonna move. It's the wheel is gonna move, all right, because it's not on the ground, all right. But I open it until the wheel just barely starts moving, all right, and I would back off just a little bit, all right, and it just wants to keep on going now, huh? All right, and then when I see that light turn yellow, I let go of this, all right, and I twist right away like this, all right. The bike all jumped up. But yeah, that's how I do it, all right? That's how I launch this thing at the drag strip. If you got, yeah, it depends on the controller and what your bike is doing, you know. Every bike is different, all right? You got to do different things to launch it. Like, everyone has their own technique, all right, is what I'll say. But that's my technique, all right? And that has gotten me pretty good. To tell you the truth, I got one of my best reaction times recently at the Reading drag strip. I got a .008 reaction time, all right, with this bike on a Sportsman tree also. I'm used to riding I'm used to racing on the Pro tree. That's the one where it goes yellow and then green right away. Well, this one, it goes yellow, 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 and then it goes green, all right? And I got almost a perfect light with it, all right? Almost 0 seconds after a couple red lights. Okay, and then the funny thing is the bike cut out and I got a 24 seconds. This bike hit 16 on the quarter mile. That's really good, all right, guys? A stock Sauron will do somewhere like a 28 seconds, all right, guys? A stock Sauron is slow as shit. Slow as that, all right? It will hit like 60 miles an hour on the quarter mile. I've gotten this thing max speed 79 miles per hour on the freeway, like right over there. There's a freeway over there. I took out a freeway real quick to see how the top speed was, and I was passing cars on the freeway with this thing, all right, at 80 miles an hour. Like, it was so sketchy, dude. I didn't know if it cut out on the freeway, it would have been all bad. Okay. The good thing is when this bike cuts out like that, it still keeps on rolling, all right? The wheel doesn't lock up. No crazy stuff happens, all right, guys? I heard that some bikes, when they cut out or they run out of power, they lock up, all right? And then, yeah, it could be very dangerous. The wheel locks up or something, all right? The Sauron never does that, all right? So that's a good thing. I've never had, you know, gotten hurt because of like a safety thing on this bike, luckily. So I'll say, okay, not yet anyways. I've come real close with the controller shutting off when I'm at the racetrack. Yeah, super scary, man. Yeah, okay. So that's some kind of benchmarks for their BSC4000. I was able to do 16s with a 421 motor amps, all right, motor current. And I think my best reaction time is a .008. I got really lucky with that one. And then top speed is 80 miles an hour. And then I think the most I've hit is close to 13 kilowatt max. All right, so you can hit 13 kilowatt with this. All right. Okay, so that's all the info I have on this ERT BSC 8000. It's time to take it off of the bike. I don't know what we're gonna do with it now. And here's my next controller, all right? There it is. That's my new controller, all right? It's a Votal EM150/2, okay? This is sold by this company, Electro and Company, all right? If you want to know more about it, I will put a video I will put a link at the end of the video, the show and tell video for this guy, all right? But it's gonna have this sweet display on it because I got these old man handlebars right here. It would be great to put that display. We're gonna lose this and we're gonna lose this, all right? I'm gonna be sad about that, but we're gonna try this new controller up, okay? Supposedly this controller can do 14 kilowatts, all right? The max this can do is 14 kilowatts, so we'll see. That's a lot of power, 14 kilowatts, guys. If you can do 14 kilowatts and be reliable, that'll be great, all right? It is heavy. This thing is heavy, and it's got a heatsink already on it. Look how big the heatsink is on it. That's the kind of heatsink that the BSC controller should have had in the first place, all right? So that, like I said, that's one of the downfalls of the BSC controller. The heatsink fucking sucks, man. You have to get an aftermarket one, all right? Yeah, and then riding it in the wet, not good. Riding it when it's really hot, not good, all right? It doesn't like any of those conditions, all right? When it's really, yeah, this bike runs really good when it's cold. The only problem when it's cold is that you get reduced range, right? And yeah, obviously the electronics don't like to, the electronics, all right, so here's a closing remark. The electronics on the bike, they like to be at the same temperature as a human being, all right? So if you are uncomfortable, the equipment is uncomfortable, all right? If it's like 80 degrees, it feels warm, all right? If it's 70 or 60 degrees out, it runs great, all right? If it's too cold, you're gonna get reduced range, all right? 100%, all right? Because the battery doesn't like being cold, all right? Everything else will be okay but electrons actually flow better when it's warm, guys, okay? So that's why when you heat up a battery, it puts out more power, all right? If you know anything about that, right? That's why that's why when you try to start your car when it's cold, it don't want to crank, right? So there you go. Real world stuff, guys. Okay, so sorry about the long video, but yeah, this is the kind of the farewell video for the ERT BAC4000. All right, it's been a great long run, buddy. I've had you for like 3 years. 1 year you've been giving me all sorts of problems, so it's time to move on. All right, and we'll see what this new controller can do. So one chapter ends, another one begins. All right, okay, ASI BAC out. Thanks for watching.